Hello everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. And if you're new here, welcome, glad to have you. So for this tutorial, I thought I would show you how I made this watercolor buttercream cake. Made in a very simple way, just using a sponge, some Everclear, and some food coloring. So if that sounds interesting, please stick around. We'll get right to it after the intro. So for this design, since there is nothing that needed to be made ahead of time so that it would have time to dry, we're going to jump right into prepping the cake. So I used a 7-inch bottom tier and a 6-inch top tier for this cake. And what I'm doing is I am damming in between the layers with a thickened buttercream, which is just your regular buttercream with some added powdered sugar to get a thicker consistency, and then putting the filling in. I'm just using the non-thickened buttercream as a filling. And what that dam will do is keep the softer filling from oozing out the sides. And then we're just going to go ahead and crumb coat the cake, which is just means doing a thin coat of buttercream to lock in all of those crumbs. Now this top tier is just going to be 2 layers of cake, and the bottom, I believe, was 3 layers of cake. I just wanted to do it a little bit different this time. Now just smooth out your buttercream, get as much of that extra off as you can, and clean off your board and pop it in the freezer for 10 minutes or in your refrigerator for 20 minutes to firm up. And while that's happening, you can go on to your next tier and do the exact same thing. Go ahead and get your chilled cake out of the freezer or your refrigerator and start applying your final coat of buttercream. Now you can add a little bit more on this, obviously a little bit more buttercream on your final coat because you don't want to see the cake through it. And just use your offset spatula to apply the buttercream. That keeps your knuckles from scraping through your buttercream when it's offset like that. And then use your scraper to remove the excess and smooth it out, and smooth out and level the top. Now you'll find on that corner that you do a bunch of times of leveling out the top and scraping the side, then leveling out the top and scraping the side, because you're kind of pushing that buttercream around on that edge. And what you want to do is get your crisp corner, so it takes a few times of doing the back and forth. There's a little dance, a little cake dance that we do to get that corner. But it's well worth it in the end. And then do the same thing with your bottom tier. I used a piping bag to apply the buttercream on this bottom tier just because I found I had some extra bubbles in the buttercream because it sat overnight, and that helps to remove those bubbles when you push it through the tip of a piping bag. It kind of forces those bubbles out. Now I wanted to add a little texture because you know me, I love my texture, to this bottom tier. And to do that, I'm just using, it's actually a brushed embroidery technique. I just wanted some raised edges. And what I did was just piped on a line of buttercream and then use a brush dipped in water to kind of drag it out to the side. And it just kind of leaves a raised edge of buttercream. And I do this throughout the entire bottom layer. I didn't want to do too much, but I wanted to do enough. So I kind of eyeballed it as I went. And just, stop when it looks like you prefer it to look. Everybody will be different in that. And then pop it. Well, actually, you can pop it in your fridge or your freezer if you want to, but I don't think I did. I did. The top tier is in the fridge because I want to keep that firm so that it's easier to transfer. But I'm using my boba straws as my support system. I'm doing a circle of 5 of them. Push them all in and then pull them out. Mark with your scissors there before you pull it out where the top of your buttercream is, so that when you pull it up, you know exactly where to cut. Now I ran out of my smaller cake board, so I had to assemble my tiers on boards that are too large. So for that top one, I just had to cut the excess off and then go back in after you've placed it on your top of your bottom tier with some buttercream and scrape out that extra along that seam. Now these are my tools. I had some Everclear, a sponge, some food coloring, and some brushes. Now the sponge I'm going to go ahead and break into smaller pieces. You could cut it, but that would give you more of a smooth surface, and I wanted it to be more rough to get the texturized look on there. And I'm using the same color food coloring, which was a navy. And what I'm doing is I'm diluting it into the extra bowls there so that you get different varying depths of color. And then just use your sponge, just dip it in the colors. I start with the lighter color first because you can always add layers of color. So I'm starting with the lighter color, and then you'll see me gradually end up using the darker colors. And just kind of stipple it on there. And for this one, I wanted the outside of the color, I don't even know what to call it. The watercolored color, I wanted it to be more concentrated in the middle, I suppose I should say, and then get lighter as it reaches the outside edge of that particular section that I am adding the color to. This is more of just a random application of color. I had an idea to begin with, but I just kind of went with it as it went. And here you can see I'm adding quite a deeper color into the middle. And if you need to remove color, just I did have a bowl of just straight Everclear so that I could use it to thin out the watercolor as I went. You can see I'm doing it right there. Just grab your sponge, a cleaner sponge that you're using just in the clear, just straight Everclear, and dab the color off. It's kind of, you go back and forth, add color, remove color, add color, remove color, until you get it to a point where you think, yeah, that's done. Okay, step back, look at it, and say, okay, if I add more, it's going to be overdone. Or, okay, it's a little naked here. I need to add a little bit more to it. Abstract cakes are kind of just do it as you go. You can start with a plan, but that doesn't mean that's going to be what you end up with. So be flexible. And explain that to your clients when they want an abstract design. If they send you a picture or bring a picture to you that is a more abstract design, clarify to them that that's what your inspiration is, but it's probably not going to be exactly that, because you kind of have to work with it as you go. You didn't do that first one, probably. I mean, they could send you a picture of something you've already done, but even if you did do the first one, it's never going to end up exactly the same. And just be clear with them about that. Communication is key. And just keep working it until you get it where you want it. And now I'm adding a little bit of gold on those raised ridges, I guess we'll call them, those raised edges of the buttercream that I added with that brush embroidery technique, just to make them pop out a little bit, because you're using the same color for your watercolor, but there's different depths of color, which adds a lot of visual interest, but it also distracts from texture. So to make that pop out more, I wanted to add a little gold. You could also go in with like a darker shade, the darkest shade of your watercolor if you wanted to do that too. But I knew I wanted to add some edible gold sheets. So I just kind of added that too. And I'm just using the tweezers and a brush to apply the gold to it. And I'm using, sometimes it sticks to your fingers, and that's okay. Just go ahead and stick it to the cake. And I applied that while it was still damp, so I didn't have to add any extra water to it. I didn't want to mess with the watercolor I had already put on. And I'm adding just some clear rock candy just for another element of depth and texture. There you go, guys. It really is a super, super easy cake to do. As long as you have the ability to apply the buttercream, you know, assemble a cake, apply the buttercream. The watercolor part is very simple. So I hope you like what you saw. And if you did, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you know when I upload new videos, which is typically twice a week. But the days sometimes change. So I thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.